Hello, you are watching Procurement and Supply Chain Live, and the next session features Ingrid DeRyck, VP Logistics Europe at AB InBev, where she is responsible for optimizing the logistics footprint of the business in Europe and improving its sustainability credentials across the supply chain. Ingrid began her career in the AB InBev family over 20 years ago, holding various supply chain planning roles. Her thirst for building a cleaner and more sustainable world has been a constant throughout several key leadership positions in the procurement and sustainability function around the globe in both zone and global roles. So welcome, Ingrid, and I believe you've got a presentation for us today.
I do. Hello, everyone. First of all, thank you very much for inviting me here today and share with all of you how AB InBev is driving towards our ambition of a net zero future. Like you said, I have the pleasure of leading our logistics organization in Europe. And let me first walk you through a little bit who we are as an organization. AB InBev is the world's largest brewer. We are based in Leuven in Belgium, in the heart, the home of Stella Artois, one of our leading global brands next to Budweiser and Corona. And aside from our three global brands, we also have more than 500 local jewels that hopefully many of you have tried and tasted with moderation, obviously. AB InBev is operating in about 50 countries across the globe. And we do that over 200 breweries and 40 verticalized operations that span from a hop farm, packaging operations, malting operations all across the world. Like we said, we have around 500 brands, and in Europe, our business in Europe represents 15% of our global volume and our global revenue. The one thing I need you to take away from this is that when you have a beer, remember that 1 out of every 4 beers sold across the globe is an AB InBev beer. In 2018, AB InBev launched our 2025 sustainability goals globally. It makes sense. Beer is a natural product. It is made from the finest quality ingredients brewed to perfection. So it is our duty to take care of the environment and the communities in which we operate. Our 4 global sustainability goals revolve around 4 big pillars: smart agriculture, water stewardship, circular packaging, and climate action. Smart agriculture is where we commit that all of our farmers, which we operate directly with, will be skilled, connected, and financially empowered. We are committing to have all of our communities that are located in high stress water areas will have an improved water quality and water availability. We commit to have all of our products to be packaged in packaging that is either returnable, either made from a majority recycled content. And on climate action, we commit that all of the electricity that we purchase will come from renewable sources, and we will reduce our carbon emissions across the entire value chain, scope 1, 2, and 3, by 25%, all by 2025. Now, AB InBev has progressed a lot on those 2025 sustainability goals. So it was time to up our game. And we've sharpened recently our ESG focus around 8 strategic priorities. The 4 remain from sustainability, and we've added on entrepreneurship, ethics and transparency, diversity, equity and inclusion, smart drinking, and moderation. Key to the success of achieving those ESG priorities will be our new ambition to achieve net zero across our value chain by 2024. And that's what I'm here to talk to you about. So let's break it down. What do our CO2 emissions look like in AB InBev? As you will see here in the pie chart, more than 85% of our value chain emissions come from outside of the walls of our operations, so not within our direct control. Logistics and brewing operations only, between brackets, account for 21% of our emissions. So it's going to be crucial to bring the entire value chain together, all the way from our farmers until the retailers that put the product in the hands of the consumers, to address these challenges on climate action. So let's talk about our brewing operations and our logistics operations and what AB InBev is doing to bring our dream of net zero to reality. First, on brewing, we are focusing on our major European breweries. We have 5 large breweries that achieve, that amount for about 70% of our CO2 emissions there. And they have committed to achieve net zero operations by 2028. Actually, our 2 breweries in the UK, Mager and Samsbury, will achieve that milestone by 2026. And then our breweries here on the mainland in Belgium and Germany will get there by 2028. Achieving that ambition in those 5 major breweries will reduce our annual CO2 emissions by more than 110,000 tons, which is the equivalent of about 35,000 cars taken off of the road. How do we do that? The strategy to support this ambition really is built on 2 pillars. First, we reduce our energy consumption. And second, remove the remaining energy that we need towards renewable energy sources. So it's basically reduce and replace. We have for that kind of a playbook, a global playbook of 29 technologies that address both of those pillars. And I'll share with you here today 3 of those that we've implemented recently in Europe. The first one is dry dehusking. This is basically removing the shell from the grain before the boiling that allows us to boil with less energy consumption. But the second benefit of that is that we can actually use the husk or the shell as biofuel for the brewery. So it's really a truly circular technology there. Second technology is simmer and strip. It's one that we have developed here in Leuven in our Global Innovation Center that reduces our water consumption as well as our carbon emissions by 5%. And it's basically boiling by bubbling. We've shared this patent with smaller breweries so that we can actually, make the impacts a lot bigger. And then, as many of you know, when we talk about renewable energy, a big challenge comes into storing renewable energy and finding batteries that are big enough to use the energy when we need it, not just when it is available. So there, we really double down on capturing remaining excess energy that was created in one process, in our brewing process, towards using it as an input in the second process, which basically is enabled by an internal storage tank and then makes that an entire integrated energy approach. Moving into transportation, how are we as AB InBev in Europe building a zero emission transportation network? As I said, logistics accounts for 9% of our CO2 emissions. So very important to make that absolutely carbon neutral. We basically use the same 2 strategies in logistics of reducing and replacing. We reduce the amount of miles or kilometers that is needed for every hectoliter of beer that we produce, firstly. And secondly, which is basically through a lot of operational efficiencies, right? And secondly, we will replace the remainder kilometers towards fuels that are zero emissions. So it's similar as in our brewing operations. So let's talk about those operational efficiencies in the reduce pillar. First, as in everything, right, we start with measuring, and we established our green logistics KPI as CO2 per hectoliter that we ship. And as you can see in the graph, we've been able to reduce our CO2 per hectoliter by more than 20% over the past 4 years. How did we do that? we focus on a couple of things. Global footprint is an important one. So we localized a lot of global brands all across the world, avoiding those ocean shipments, which I know if any of you is in logistics, it's a benefit to have local sourcing, not to be dependent on any ocean carriers or containers at this point in time. And it's also about local sourcing of ingredients and materials that we need to produce the beer, right? Then pure logistics operational efficiencies, reducing empty miles, empty kilometers, avoiding those empty trucks on the roads by true collaborations with our customers as well as our suppliers, right? And maximizing the truck space that we have as a consequence. So maximizing the weight per shipment on every truck, topping up orders with our customers so that we don't waste a single square inch in those trucks. And then lastly, intermodality. So using a combination of different types of transportation, not just over the road transportation. So I'll share a couple of examples there within AB InBev in Europe. Yes, we do ship beer on a boat. We do that. We've done that here for a while in Belgium, and in doing so, we have been able to reduce emissions by 65%. And then we also ship them on a train, and you can see that there's a little bit of a longer haul that we do there, mainly in France, Germany, and in Italy. And actually, that mode of transportation generates 50% less CO2 emissions than normal over-the-road transportation. Moving into replace. This really is only going to be possible through innovation, by scaling up alternative fuels, as well as making our warehousing operations net zero and betting big on some technologies. So what is AB InBev in Europe doing in terms of alternative fuels? We're using alternative fuels actually already at scale across Europe. LNG, CNG, biodiesel and HVO are currently accounting for more than 13 million driven kilometers across Europe. In some of our countries, this actually represents a share of more than 10%. To really fully reduce our carbon emissions in transportation to zero, we're looking at both electricity and hydrogen as the main fuel sources. When we look at urban deliveries, short haul deliveries, smaller trucks, we are already moving to battery electric vehicles, our so-called e-trucks. We've deployed those first e-trucks both in Belgium and Germany, have been piloting them for a while now, and are expanding them as we speak this year further into our second tier electric network, how we deliver our points of connection, our pubs with e-trucks. When we look at the longer haul deliveries, our first tier network, that means that we're going to look at a combination of both electrification and hydrogen for the longer hauls there. And I'm happy to report that there in Belgium, we are partnering with one of our major retailers, Colruyt, to pilot those hydrogen trucks. As many of you know, when you're on the journey towards zero emission, when you're on the journey of sustainability, it is relatively easy to start piloting, but it's much more challenging to really scale those technologies. To scale those technologies, we're going to have to partner with our customers, our suppliers, startups, governments. You know, we're going to have to all come together and make sure the infrastructure is there to really use alternative fuels at scale. So I'm happy to report here that our Budweiser Brewing Group in the UK has partnered with Procurement in a location close to our brewery in Meager to have a joint project and really establish the first large-scale hydrogen generation plant at a brewery. So we're going to use our brewery's energy that is being generated there, create together with Protium hydrogen and use that hydrogen generated then again in our brewing operations, but also we will use that hydrogen to fuel our forklift trucks as well as our heavy goods vehicles. So very excited about that and looking forward to scale that across other breweries in Europe. So in a nutshell, we are on our way to our zero emissions journey by both reducing and replacing our operational emissions while leading technology deployments in the brewing industry at scale. Having said that, delivering on our purpose to create a future with more cheers, it means we must act with urgency to help address the climate crisis and support our communities. We fundamentally believe that only a joint effort and very strong partnerships with our suppliers, our customers, NGOs, governments, startups, innovators out there is gonna help us make the world a better place for future generations. We, on our end, will continue to work towards finding better solutions in our own operations and beyond. So with that, I hereby call on all entrepreneurs and startups in sustainability to apply to our fourth cohort of our 100 plus accelerator that we launched this year together with our partners of Bain & Company, Ball, Colruyt Group, and Siemens. So with this, I leave you, and let's look at our video.
At AB InBev, we dream big to create a future with more cheers. A future with more cheers is shared prosperity for our communities, our planet, and our company. It is growth that is inclusive, value that is shared, and wins for the world that are truly worth celebrating. It's a sustainable, equitable future for all. We harness the essence of beer, its rootedness and reach, to drive meaningful impact. Our commitment to sustainability is grounded in 8 strategic priorities, expressed through 3 themes. Inclusive. From thousands of farmers to millions of small retailers to colleagues and consumers. We improve livelihoods and increase access to opportunity. Our inclusivity extends to our products, going beyond an affordable and accessible category. We stand for better choices, which is why we promote moderation. Natural. We are a company based in nature. With products made from simple ingredients, we understand the true value of the planet's precious resources. We work with nature instead of against it, leveraging nature-based solutions that develop resilience where it's needed most. Local. With more than 500 local brands in our portfolio across nearly 50 operating countries, we are truly a global, local company. We keep our supply chains short, our impact direct, and our boots on the ground. We believe in the future of local economies and invest in their well-being and resilience. We dream big to create a future with more cheers.
Okay, thank you, Ingrid. A wonderful presentation. It's only about 11 o'clock here in the UK, but you've made me look forward to our drinks networking break later on tonight. So I do have some questions for you. First of all, you mentioned alternative fuels there, and hydrogen was one of the ones you mentioned, but which alternative fuel technology do you see winning the race to zero emissions?
I actually don't look at it as a race. I hope they all win the race. They all get to the finish as soon as possible, because for us, it is not an exclusive winner in terms of technology. We will need a combination of all those technologies, because some of those technologies just fit better certain applications of our transportation network, right? Some of the technologies are better suited for shorter hauls, others are better suited for longer hauls. So I think it's important that all of those technologies continue to further expand and grow and scale so that we can use them in all places of our transportation network. So no competition, actually they are complementary and they're able, to build upon each other.
Yeah, it's a good point. I mean, it's not a race. As long as somebody wins the race, we don't care who wins, right?
I hope they all win, like I said.
Yeah. Okay, and when we're talking about scope 3 emissions as well, what's AB InBev's role in decarbonising the entire supply chain?
Actually, like I said, right, more than 85% of our emissions, they are generated outside of the walls of our breweries. So a lot of our attention and our time goes into working with our value chain to decarbonize. How do we do that, actually? If you remember from our sustainability goals, we have a pillar on smart agriculture. Maybe a lot of people may not have an idea about this, but actually AB InBev has across the world entire teams of agronomists that are in the field working with our growers every single day, looking at ways to optimize their yields in different climate conditions, sharing best practices, making sure they dose the right dosage of seeds and water and so on to just operate in the most sustainable way. That's one way of working with our growers. We also bring new technologies. We bring data insights to our growers who on their own do not have access to that information, so that helps us reduce water consumption and CO2 emissions in the production of our ingredients. So that's a very important part of that. Secondly, I'd like to call out our global platform Eclipse that we started off, I think 2 or 3 years ago by now. And through Eclipse, we collaborate with our entire value chain partners, all kinds of suppliers, right? They might be even supplying the same material or ingredient to us, but they're all part of our Eclipse platform. And in that Eclipse platform, we share best practices. We share the how to decarbonize supply chain. For instance, AB InBev has been super fast in getting those virtual power purchase agreements in place. And actually in a lot of places around the world, we already have 100% renewable electricity. So we know very well how to do that. We have that expertise. We of course grew it over time together with the input from NGOs and experts. So there's no use in keeping that knowledge to us alone, right? So we're going to ask our suppliers and our value chain partners to do the same thing, and we might as well, share that knowledge and do it for them in some cases, right? So that's an example of the work we do in Eclipse to accelerate the road and the journey towards decarbonation through our value chain.
Okay, well, this all sounds fabulous and very positive, but what's the biggest challenge that you're facing when it comes to implementing some of the green technologies you mentioned in your operations?
I would say scaling is the biggest challenge of a lot of those technologies, but I'm an optimistic person, right? I do remember when we put the first challenge out there that we're going to have 100% of our electricity sourced from renewable sources. We thought we were absolutely nuts when we put that ambition out there. And a couple of years later, we're almost there. So you learn along the way. Technology develops at lightning speed these days. So the scaling, you just need some large organizations to actually drive the need for it and lead by example. And as a consequence, we will find partners that are going to invest together with us and making that happen. So for me, the biggest challenge, it comes into scaling more particularly, I'll say things like practical things like legislation in terms of transportation, right? Where we're going to have to work on that. We're going to have to work on fueling stations, an entire network of hydrogen and electricity that is not there today in Europe. So it's going to have to be there. We know that there's going to be a lot of investments needed in decarbonizing the supply chain, and AB InBev is ready to invest with our partners.
Okay, and as you said there in one of your final slides, you are looking for people to partner with, right? And
that's right.
Innovators. So there is still time to do that. There's just a few days left though. So anyone who's watching this now is the time to reach out. But look, oh, there you go. There we go. There we see it. So applications are still open until the 30th of April. So you do have a couple of days. Sounds like a fantastic opportunity and initiative. Okay, that's all we've got time for today. All that remains is for me to say cheers to Ingrid. And thank you so much for your presentation and your time today. It's been a great session. We really appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Scott. It was an honor to be here.
Okay, and as I said, the drinks break is a few hours away, but do stay with us and we'll have the next session coming up straight away.